Live. Perfect. All right, well, welcome everyone to the February 19th Regional Public Transit Advisory Committee meeting with Cascade East Transit and CUIC, Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council. My name is Brian Potwin. I'm the chair of this committee. We've got a packed agenda today. We've got people trickling in, which is great, and we have a couple of absences on CET's end, but Eric is going to help us out with some of the presentations. So I'm going to kick us off here, call us to order, and start off introductions. Let's go around the room this direction. Toby, you want to go first, and then we'll make our way around.
Sure, Toby Mark, City of Bend. Hi, Jordan Holdy. I sit on this committee, the only original left. It's true. The only one ever.
Should I introduce myself now or do we go?
Oh, it's fine. Yeah.
I'm Kristen Reidelberger. I am with Central Oregon Land Watch. I'm the Associate Program Manager of the Cities and Towns Program.
Okay. Welcome.
Greg Bryant, Deshusboro Woods, and also the question.
Bob Bryant, representing Sisters here today.
Trevor Johnson. I'm on the Red Regional Advisory Committee for Cascades East Transit.
And I'm Ron Foster, been resident. I'd like to hear more about the transit.
Denise Labuda, represent Bend.
Eric Lentz, Strategy Program Manager for Cascades East Transit. Back to Casey.
And then Casey, welcome.
Casey Berg with OSU Cascades.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Right off the bat, we've got public comment. So let's open up the floor if you have public comment.
Hello again. My name is Kristen. Again with Central Oregon Land Watch. In case you don't know, what the Cities and Towns program is really focused on, smart, sustainable growth, and transit is a huge part of that. So we're excited to be jumping into the transit conversation this year and going forward. Unfortunately, this meeting is during our staff meetings every week, so I don't know how often I'll be able to make it to this one, but hopefully as much as I can. So we'll be playing an advocacy role and support for the improvements happening this year and in the future. I wanted to bring up a request for an agenda item in a future meeting. As was kind of being discussed a little bit earlier, funding is pretty uncertain right now, both at the federal and state level. And there's a couple of things that I think would be helpful on the short-term and longer-term side of things. I think one thing is the coordinated human services plan needs to be updated every 5 years, and CET's is expired, and the state has kind of let it slide and has had kind of a grace period for the recent past, but this year the state is really looking at all of the expenses very closely, and it has done some audits and unofficial audits, and that will just be something that will need to be discussed and addressed soon to shore up our ability to apply for state and federal grants. So just kind of bringing that into the room as like a future conversation topic for these meetings. And then another one, which would be longer term, once we get some clarity potentially from the federal level and at the state level, once this legislative session is wrapped up, is kind of a longer term capital plan just to kind of get ourselves set up for success. So those are just requests for future agenda items, get it in the room and moving forward.
The question is, okay, longer term, are you looking at 5, 10 years, or are you looking at 20 years or something like that? I'm just asking because I'm also on transportation.
Yeah, I think the capital plan would probably be linked to the 2040 master plan is my guess, kind of more tying funding to the plan and implementation.
Yeah.
But the coordinated human services plan would be it's more of an urgent need for the ability to apply for state and federal grants.
Okay. And just following on with what Kristen's talking about, the coordinated human services plan is similar to our master plan, but it describes how we interact with local governments and provide specific services required by the state. And when we submit our STIP applications, it asks specifically for a copy of that plan. And it must be updated every 5 years. And we fell out of compliance with that. They've waived the requirement and granted continuance of our prior one that was completed in 2018, but lots changed since then.
So is it on the table this year to be updated?
I drafted something last year that would bring on consultant services for a capital plan, a human services plan, and others. We also will probably be looking at a revision to our 2040 master plan. So it's on the table. It's a matter of staff capacity and budget. Really a matter of prioritization.
So, no.
Not currently planned, but we'll be ready once we get the green light for it.
So say again, Eric, what the expectation is for that update? Is there one, I mean, is it on the docket for?
It's been on our to-do for at least a year.
Okay.
Like I said, I already drafted the procurement materials for it last year. But staff capacity and budget kicked it down the road. So don't know where it currently lies in priority, but it is on the table.
Okay.
Great, okay. Do you have any other comments?
Me?
Oh, no? We are in public comment section though.
Andrew is actually on the agenda later.
Oh, fantastic.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll wait then. And I'm sorry, just rewinding too for introductions. We skipped the folks online. So, oh, want to get folks in. Thanks to shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. You wanna start us off, Hobie?
You got it. Hey everyone, I'm Hovey Ariano. I work in ODOT, so I work with that coordinated health plan you're talking about, and there is a grant award for that work through ODOT, and I am here and as a guest. Thank you. Go to Freddie next.
Freddie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, sorry about that. I am Freddie Finidrodet. I'm an alternate on this committee.
Great, welcome. And then we've got another person online, Brian. Something.
Watching, and we are live streaming to YouTube too, so hello if you're watching. Just a note, folks on YouTube cannot interact with us though.
My name is John Livingston with Full Access High Desert. Cover Deschutes, Crook, and Jefferson in Lake counties for adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities.
Welcome. Thanks for being here. So are there any other public comments?
I had one that was received by email. I feel like I can read it out. Okay. It's an email from Hal the Show. I think Hal's written before. He's a professor at COCC. So let's see. Our names are Teresa and Hal the Show. We both live in Bend and attempt to regularly ride the bus. We're dedicated bike bus commuters, which began for us in Bellingham, a similar sized city to Bend. We love the bus system there because it complemented our biking abilities. Buses ran every 10 to 15 minutes. They always ran in the snow, and the city had 3 hubs on a north to south access through town. Whatever we had to do, we could easily bike to the nearest bus station, wait a few minutes, and be whisked away anywhere in town. From which point we were never more than a few minutes from our destination. Whatever the day threw at us, we could easily adapt, throw our bikes on the bus and get where we needed to go. Unfortunately, this lifestyle has been very hard to replicate in Bend. With only one hub, it can easily take over an hour to bus from one location to another if a transfer is involved. Not worth it. With service currently at 45-minute intervals, there is no ability to be flexible and change plans as life presents its daily variabilities. And when we need to bus the most in snowy and icy conditions, the bus service is least reliable, especially because it doesn't serve COCC, where we both work. We're delighted that CET is planning to expand frequency and duration. I teach night classes every Wednesday that doesn't get out until 7:30 p.m. Yay! However, it doesn't solve the basic problem of the spoken hub model. It simply takes too long to get anywhere if a transfer is involved. We'd love to see a new model that leads to more efficient transport times. Thank you for listening.
I think I heard that comment the last time.
Yeah, I think he's written a similar
We wrote
before,
it.
and I'll just comment that the reference to the hub and spoke model, that's where all of our bus routes in Bend come through Hawthorne Station, and that's where you make your connections and transfers. Our the mobility hub feasibility study that we completed a few years ago is what would enable us to transfer it to a different model where you can transfer at other places throughout the community. So that is on our roadmap, but again, a matter of having funding and other things.
Did anybody respond to him?
To help, I just that we'll put it on record for the committee.
Oh, okay. I know that there was one day where they, in the middle of the day, they just stopped running because the roads were too bad to get to college. But it'd be nice to know on the Passio app or whatever, when you guys decide to do a snow schedule or stop a route because the roads are too bad.
Right.
Because I actually, I was looking at the schedule at the hospital. And a lot of the time points, like it had before, it had the destination where that major time point was going to, and then somebody, I don't know who it was, but they took off the writing on the top. So you can't see where the bus is actually for that time point where they actually go.
Okay, I can take a look at that. And on the snow routes, I finally gained control of our GTFS feed, which is the feed that plugs into Google and the live maps. So we're finally being able to tackle that. Our information on Google had been out of date by over more than a year. So I finally got that updated. The next step is getting real-time information. And we also set up something that will allow snow routes in Passio. So when we declare a snow route or a snow schedule, we flip that switch and it changes the times on the app and includes an alert. So for snow days, what we do is add 15 minutes to the current schedule. So if it's a 45-minute schedule, it becomes an ad-hoc schedule. And then we take out the minor time points. So we just show Hawthorne Station because the actual times that stops beyond that, they might shift depending on traffic and things like that. But we'll always reset at Hawthorne.
Did you communicate that to Powell?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I talked to them the other day in person. We're also talking about potential shuttles. So I wanted to get better signage for COCC. We recently found that we had trouble going through the Northwest Crossing spur as well. So what we do now is go down Shetland Park Road and then turn around at the Mount Washington roundabout. So it's out and back. We can't do Northwest Crossing or up a hill. But we will activate a temporary stop down there on snow days in front of the Cole School. So I want to get some better signage out there and have something about the snow route. So that you know if there's a snow route, you know where to go. At this point. And then the extra piece I'll talk with CCC about is our opportunity to have a shuttle that runs from the bottom of the hill to the top.
Yes.
The vans can get up the hill, but our buses can't.
Yep.
So,
yep.
As far as I know, I don't know if it's really true or not, Do you guys at OSU have capability to take a wheelchair? Okay.
We don't have any
You don't have
service that
anybody
we
to
offer
pick up?
specifically.
What's that?
We don't offer any transportation services.
You don't?
CET is the
That's all I know.
for the region, yeah.
Because I know at COCC, they were doing it for a while and then I don't know where.
We can talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
On the agenda, yeah.
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 I just wanted to mention, I've been to Bellingham many times and that I don't know who that was, but he's absolutely correct. Their system is brilliant and I don't know, whatever they're doing, I think we should probably start duplicating, whether it's their funding mechanisms or,
Part of it is they have 15,000 students.
right,
With
it's a
the
university
transit
city, yeah. So,
But they do have a good system.
yeah.
Yeah, good comment. Any other public comments?
I know the other day that you guys did Saturday schedule on a weekday
Oh, yeah.
because of the snow.
Mhm.
Sometimes that Saturday schedule doesn't work very well. If you're trying to get, say like to the old mill and then you're trying to go north.
Kind of breaks the transfers when we have to do that, but the reason you'll see a Saturday schedule on a weekday is that's when we're at bus down.
Yeah, oh,
So the
Or
Saturday,
you don't have enough bus drivers, right?
yeah, so the Saturdays schedules, we combine 2 routes with 1 bus. So it will run a 30-minute route and then it'll run a 45-minute route. So those 2 different routes in a loop with the same bus. So when you see that happening on a weekday, it's when we're down a driver or a bus and we're forced into combining routes like that.
Okay, let's move forward with our agenda. Thanks for all of the public comments. Appreciate you showing up. So next up, we've got the approval of the December 18th, 2024 meeting minutes. Did folks receive a copy of that so we can move forward with approval?
And I forget, did Jared send it out? So I didn't see it.
yeah, you did.
See it?
I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it? Okay, great. All right, perfect. So let's, is there a motion on the floor to approve the?
I motion that we approve the minutes.
Fantastic.
Seconded.
Second, all right, all in favor, say aye.
Um,
Excellent. The December 18th, 2024 meeting minutes have been approved. Thank you all for that. Next up, in lieu of Bob Townsend being here today, it's going to be the Eric Lynch show. And Eric, I have to comment, you have an excellent narration voice.
The reading of the letter,
The reading of the letter, that was great. I was like, is it radio or is it a children's book? I don't know what it is. It's really good. Super kudos to you. Okay, you ready, guys? Back to you. Thank you.
I've got all of the CT pieces today. Derek is out sick and Bob unfortunately had an emergency in the family. So I'll be covering his material, but most of it's building on what he presented last time to you guys. Let's get into it. First off, we talked about mission statement. This is part of building the team and the organizational changes that he's been implementing. You can see if I can get that camera out of the way so you can see. So these are a couple of drafts, and we're not looking for a recommendation from the team here specifically, but just wanted you guys to be informed and aware of what he's looking at. This is something that he's leading and will be coordinating with the CIC board on. As he mentioned at the last meeting, the mission statement is rather bland and doesn't have much punch to it, doesn't really commit us to excellence, right? So the idea here is to give a shout out to measurable outcomes. We want safe and reliable and convenient transit, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at with these different models. So it's all a little bit of, business speak. But each one emphasizes different pieces. So wanted me to open this up to the floor for any discussion on any elements that you would like to see or emphasized for him to consider.
I like the specific call out of the services, employment, healthcare. That's really good to be specific in that way. Even though mission statements can tend to be generalized, it's good to think about all those different pieces of the community that need this service.
Right.
I don't disagree with that. I would agree with maybe an exception. It would seem as though it would be important that it's realistic and achievable.
Yeah.
And with funding, such a big question here in Central Oregon with regard to public transportation. It seems like they need to go hand in hand somehow. As what's realistically possible under our current funding and financial model for public transportation versus what would be the ideal if funding wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And usually what you do is usually the first one is the biggest. Yeah, and there's almost in importance, but usually the first one is the biggest function, then you go down in sequence. Is the number one thing is usually what you first see, so you want to make sure you get them on that one.
Yeah. And just for reference, like one of the little taglines that we have on our letterhead is connecting communities in Central Oregon.
Yeah.
Simple.
So I see healthcare is outlined in there several times. I'm not a huge fan of privatized health companies. And I don't know how much the drivers are getting charged for premiums, but I hope it's not that much. Do you guys have a universal health system for your
The
workers?
call out here, yeah, we actually have really good benefits. I just had a kid.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, we actually do have good healthcare. The call out here, though, I think is trying to highlight the different services that we have, like Battle Ride. And
Right.
giving people access. Yeah.
Right.
For the employees.
Oh, okay.
I have a quick question. Is the mission statement the only thing that's being updated, or is the overall structure with vision, mission, core values, operation updated too? I think that makes a big difference for me to wrap my head around, because I think these are, sorry, here comes the Toby comment. I think these are all quite, especially because of what was said in what time we are in, they're not bold enough. They're not even close to really being bold enough to what we should strive for to provide in the future. I think they're all having a good foundation. But I'm asking about the other part of the question is there a vision statement? Because the vision statement should set the vision. I think this is not the time to actually, I might disagree with some people on that. I don't think this is a time to be careful about what we need to do. Yes, we need to be concerned about funding what's available, but it's also a great opportunity to actually not be afraid to reinvent and think about what we can do better to actually provide an excellent service, which we might not do right now.
Right, especially in the future, I think expanding hours to be more frequent. A rapid bus from the airport to Bend, so people aren't spending $200 a month on or per ride on Ubers. So the mission statements are beautiful, but I think there's more work to do to make those visions a reality. That makes sense.
This is good, and I think part of, I guess the approach here is Bob is doing a lot of management work, so focused on staff, focused inward message, like how do we get drivers to deliver quality service and increase the level of service that we deliver as a team versus the public's expectations of us, right? So I think that's kind of what we're looking for, is how do we make sure that all of that's included here, that we're not just thinking of how to work with staff, but we're thinking of meeting the public need for transit here.
Well, I would like to bring this up, and I did email you in regards to it. I talked to a lot of our bus drivers, and a lot of them feel they are not being represented very fairly by the union. And also the proposed pay rise is not nearly enough. And I think there needs to be more work done to satisfy our drivers that work tirelessly. They don't get paid enough for what they should be getting. And I will still continue to advocate for higher wages because I think it's fair that we treat them with the utmost respect and by means as well, paying them well. Because right now grocery prices are high, rent's high, uncertainty on a federal level is, so I just wanted to throw that out there, just briefly. Thank you.
And
So this is quarterly draft, right?
yes,
I mean, there's a lot of redundancy between
yeah,
a couple of them.
they're not widely different, these 5 here, but I think this isn't limited. This is just conversation starter stuff.
Is that all all brand new thoughts, or is that?
This is,
Okay.
Bob's been leading this, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Hey Eric, this is Derek. Just a quick comment. I'm wondering if we could like find like 1 or 2 that people just absolutely don't like, and we could throw those out so we could use this committee's input as a process to narrow these down. So I think these
I
are
talked to Bob before the meeting and we're not looking to refine specifically. We're
Okay,
just looking
perfect.
for ideas. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, so some of the big initiatives, Bob gave his roadmap at the last meeting. This attaches some target dates to the major milestones. The big one is delivering value, improving our service, right? So that's weekday extended hours in Bend. This is what we had before the pandemic, starting at 6 a.m. And we say 7:30 p.m., but the target is last bus departing Hawthorne Station at 7. So that might extend a little bit beyond 7:30. Yeah. So right now we're doing the work behind the scenes to make sure that we have enough drivers and buses to make this happen. Because obviously 6 to 7:30 is longer than a single driver shift. Pretty much our entire system today depends on 1 bus, 1 driver per route kind of model for the day. Yeah. We don't really do interlining or split shifts and combined routes. It can get really complicated at other agencies when you have a complex system. And when you're doing multiple loops and different routes. Ours is dead simple, 1 bus, 1 driver, 1 route. And then they get a break at certain points through the day. This will take a little bit of restructuring on our labor side. So making sure we have people, aligning the shifts to these new hours. But we're in negotiations right now with the union, and that is including a pay raise. So target date, June 2nd. Then the transit pass discussion that we've been talking about, we are calling it transit pass, not an ID card or anything like that. It's a transit pass. This is scheduled to launch in June. I'm developing an RFP right now for it. So it's looking at pretty much conventional fare system where you have tickets or an app or something like that to ride the bus. Lots of universities will have your university ID card grants you access, right? And Washington State last year made all transit in the state fare free. So the state's subsidizing it, subsidizing agencies. But the students have a youth pass. So they still have to tap on even though they're not paying anything, right? So that's going to be kind of the concept for the first couple of months as we roll out the transit pass. Is we're going to put this in people's hands, get them the app if they want that, or get physical fare media, and something that you can tap on to get on the bus. Still developing what that looks like, who's going to provide the hardware and the back end tech to make all of this work. But target is June.
Is there any talk inside the circle about how much you guys would actually charge?
That'll be the next slide.
So I have a quick question on the passes. Are you looking at like a tap system where you tap on and your balance is deducted off the tap, or you have a monthly pass similar to other cities?
That's still to be determined, but I want something that's as flexible as possible, and I'm working with Bob and others to educate on what's available. Part of it's gonna come down to who we get a contract with, that being government and a smaller agency.
Right.
We might not be able to get all the best features.
'Cause
But
even
I
if you-
really want an open payment system. That's
Yeah.
where you can just tap with your watch, your phone.
Right.
Your credit card. Doesn't matter if you came here from Australia.
I was just gonna say,
Right.
like, you can download the app and you can have your physical card registered on the app, or you can do it virtually from the app and use the RFID tap.
Pay for your.
Yeah, and there's so many ways, I think that that's a great idea, having it accessible on someone's phone as well. Like, say you
Yeah.
lost your transit card, well, you still have it on your phone too. So,
And we'll have physical fare cards for those who need them, and then disposable passes, like shelters can give out single ride tickets, right?
right,
So we'll try to make it as flexible as possible. It's all TBD how it's gonna shape out. But
and I'm glad you mentioned about the shelters, because I know there's a lot of people that can't afford to ride transit if we go back to a fare-based system, so that's gonna be very essential to make sure that houseless people can still get to their appointments and have accessibility, so thank you.
To their jobs too.
Right,
but yeah, some of the other nice features that are available is like fare capping now, right?
Mhm.
So if you're using the app and you buy 2 tickets, right? You need to go to COCC and back.
Mhm.
Well, then you realize, oh, wait, I need to go to downtown too.
Right,
So if you wind up spending 3 tickets worth in a day,
Mhm.
that's the max you'll ever spend. So fare capping means that, you know, if you have to take 10 rides in a day, you won't ever pay more than 3. Just for
Yeah.
example, right?
I've seen that done in other
And
places.
similar things with monthly things, and this is really important for folks who can't afford the $50 up front for a monthly pass or whatever the number is. If you take so many rides in a month and then you hit that cap, you're unlimited for the rest of the month.
Right,
So there's nice little features like that that we can use with the newer technology.
will there be a concession price for people who might be low income?
Yeah, whenever we get to the fare policy, there's gonna be a look at group rates for seniors, disabled students, and that's gonna be a big piece of what we have to figure out, and then working with others. Like, when we had fares before the pandemic, we worked with Kobo and others. And they would actually distribute tickets, and then we bill them monthly for what they sold. So we'll have partnership programs like that too, and then I'm looking to get some ticket vending machines as well.
Right,
Since we're gonna have mobility hubs, we're gonna have physical locations where you can get them.
so like a kiosk where you can
Yeah.
load up your cards, that's smart.
Yeah, those are expensive, and that's something we have to budget for in the capital plan, but
That's been my thought for a long time.
Okay, I have a question, go back up to the drivers. I was just wondering myself have you guys looked at, maybe have you most experienced driver stand here, be the extra driver, just in case somebody is sick or something like that, you can, but you have to be probably the most experienced because you got so many different routes.
we have break bus drivers that they are the ones that fill in when they cover a lunch shift. So if there's a 30-minute or 45-minute move, they'll be the ones that take Route 2 for that break or whatever. So we have folks that are trained on all the routes.
Because I was gonna say, somebody sitting here, and then maybe you don't need them out on the bus, but they can do other stuff in the office.
Yeah. Excuse me.
And then
Um,
jump in with it.
We do have on-call drivers too, but right now the problem isn't drivers. We're actually doing better on that. We're still slim margins, but we're out of vehicles. We don't have spare capacity right now. Typically, you want like 10% or better spare capacity. And we had to cancel Route 25 yesterday because we didn't have vehicles.
Sure.
So, but we have more coming, so hopefully they'll get better.
When do they come in?
Later this summer.
Didn't we just get a couple?
We just got a couple and then one got hit within a month, like hit in the road.
One of the good looking gray ones?
Oh, man, really? Was it
I
their
mean, I hope
fault?
everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Is there a timeline for possible Saturday service for the Redmond Flex routes?
Not at this time, but it is on our roadmap to.
Okay,
Bring
'cause I've heard a lot of people saying that would be nice to have, so.
Yeah.
All right.
So, all right, more target dates. Speaking of new vehicles and drivers, if it happens, we're looking at potentially Route 8 Northeast Bend, something that was planned a couple of years ago now. But that area has been kind of chaotic. Last year, we had the North End Highway being rebuilt. This year, it's still up in the air as Butler Market and Wells Acres is gonna be shut down for
Are you kidding?
quite a while.
Wow.
So they're putting a roundabout in at that spot, and that's where our route was planning on going. So we could look at an alternate routes. We've sketched up some concepts. We'll see what's possible. One other hitch, though, is the driver needs to come back to Hawthorne Station to take their breaks. That makes this a very long route, which might not be feasible if it's,
Maybe like an hour or so.
if it's like an hour, yeah. So we're still weighing this one, but we're gonna put that on the calendar as, oh, that's Bastille Day, isn't it?
How come they have to come here for their breaks? Can't they just park at like Walmart and go in there and have lunch or somewhere else?
Technically, yes, but they need to have a safe place to park and leave the vehicle, so. We were looking at technically Target, but ODOT didn't build it for us.
Okay.
But as mobility hubs come online,
Mhm.
that will help with that. Then further down, the transit pass. We're hoping to do a lot of community outreach and we'll be hiring new staff to help. We'll be doing pop-up events to register people, get cards in hands and all that good stuff. I've got a box full of tablets to help people, punch in what they need. But we want to have everyone on board with the passes by September. So those first couple months with the passes, it'll just be a tap it if you got it. Come September, we're gonna require it. Then October is when we'll start charging fares. That's the projected timeline at least, so. Yeah.
Did you guys hire somebody new for a new position that you guys were? hiring?
No, we had an opening for fleet and facilities manager, which we just promoted internally, one of the maintenance guys into that.
Oh,
We're currently hiring the fleet facilities supervisor position, which is that who stepped up to manager. Manager was a new role. We didn't have that. It is previously housed under the operations manager, and we wanted to split that out to free up the ops guy to.
wasn't it somebody to do travel training?
Oh, yes, that was contract. And I think we've got them through June this year. I'm not sure. But we are hiring a union position staff member here. It's a junior role, but it's community affairs outreach assistant. A little bit of a funky title, but
What does that mean?
pretty much everything. They're gonna be staff support role, so they'll help with some of these outreach things, help with administrative functions and things like that. But it's, I think, paid around 25 an hour. Oh, and then we're also hiring a safety program manager. So that position is still open too. Right. And here's the fare structure. So this is just an example, just to throw something on paper for conversation's sake.
Yeah.
Looking at other agencies as a reference. So ballpark will probably be somewhere around $2. That's where most of the state is right now. Chariots and Lane Transit District are a tad under that. But that's $2 per ride. You'll usually have a free transfer within 2 hours or something like that. The max daily rate is that fare capping. It can be 2 rides, 3 rides, or 2.5 rides, whatever. It's arbitrary. The idea is once you hit that, you're unlimited. Same deal for monthly and others. And then group rates, you'll see everyone else has typically senior disabled students and other categories. Then we'll have partnerships with like universities, St. Charles, City of Bend employees, things like that. And that'll be kind of a group deal that if the employer purchases it in bulk, they can be invoiced monthly and get a discount.
Wasn't it like, if you had 10 employees that wanted to do it, that you guys would give them the group rate?
Something like
From
that,
what?
yeah.
I think that's what I remember.
Yeah, we typically look at the big guys in town first, but we're gonna have to have something
Start looking at reading.
for smaller groups too. And noting as well, the state is moving towards TDM, Transportation Demand Management rules, that will encourage employers to provide these options. So we need to figure this out so that we can work with them and meet their needs as well.
Eric, is this gonna be, are we not doing the zones like before the pandemic, the regions were broken?
really don't
up
want
into zones, so that's not happening anymore?
No,
Okay.
I was also wondering, would it make sense to do a graduating, in other words, maybe not go to this extent for the first 3 or 6 months, and then maybe go to this after that, just to let people sort of get used to a fare and then increase their fare at a certain point in time.
that's a possibility, yeah. I think we're just getting started with this conversation, and Bob is gonna be going there into the municipalities in the area, like I know City of Bend, for example, the counselors have keen interest in how this shakes out. And they provide us $1.3 million a year. We'll probably want some input for that.
Yeah.
So I know when Bob presented to council, there was some discussion on how we'll structure this. Ultimately, it's up to the City of Bend or to the COIC board. But we could look at models that have a graduated rollout and different ways of making it work.
I was thinking the public would probably accept that a little bit easier than give them full bid.
Well, and I think that, so if I get a day pass, I can go for a mattress all the way to Bend for $6.
Yeah,
And
that's,
back.
that's one of the things under discussion right now is whether to have a rate for City of Bend and then regional rates, right? So community connectors are the longer routes, and maybe it makes sense to be 50 cents more or whatever, right? But we don't want to do zones where you have to do math and figure out, is this zone 4 or how many zones is that, right?
Right.
We got a question online, who's ready?
Oh, Fred?
Thanks.
Yeah.
I noticed the Road Valley has a reduction for passengers between 10 and 17. Is that something CET considered at all? I know you talked about students, but of course there's plenty of people in that age range who aren't students. Was there a reason for excluding that, or was it just not on the table?
Sorry, that's probably my language as I default to saying students. I think movement is going towards youth pass. And as mentioned, the state of Washington just mandated that statewide and is subsidizing it. That's one thing that's, I've heard talk about that at the state level here in Oregon as well, but I don't expect it to happen as a state law. Just because our legislature is focused on other issues right now from what I've seen. But I would expect that probably to happen in the next couple of years here. And I think if agencies voluntarily go that direction, that might encourage it.
Quick question, what's the current ridership?
I would have to pull that.
And what's the assumption of how fare structure will impact ridership? That's not my second question. Third question is, which is equally important, what's the current demographic of our ridership? Because I think that I mean, the fares will only have a positive impact if there's actually enough ridership that's paying it.
Right.
And it feels, I don't know if it's true, that the majority of our ridership is what we want to have reduction qualifications for, which there is no revenue generated. So and then, which then leads to the next question of, are we considering the fare box to be part of the equation to determine fares, and what's the goal for that?
Right now, I think the interest from the board is to have fares as a token amount.
Yeah.
And then figure out what puts us on a track towards sustainability. Or, nationwide fare box recovery is about 12%. So we're not really paying for much through fares. We projected somewhere in the ballpark of 400,000 a year, probably.
Is there interest to actually change that, to actually get people like me to actually try to use the transit system? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay $500 for an annual pass to ride the bus. I wouldn't pay 60 because
Yeah.
that wouldn't be convenient for me to actually get to it. So is there a secondary conversation alongside that about actually how can CET become a more innovative mobility service to encourage higher ridership, especially ridership that's willing to pay? Sorry, I always say the unpopular things.
No, you're exactly
agree
right,
with that.
and this
I mean-
is part of the conversation, so we had some folks that were encouraging fare for fair's sake. There's some who think that it might clean up the clientele, as I've heard it described. I'm personally skeptical of that. And there's also interest in getting choice ridership, right? But what I put forward when this conversation started was we need to demonstrate value if people are gonna pay for it.
100%.
And the compromise there, that's why we did the extended hours this year. That's what enabled us to light that fire and get that happening finally, was if we're gonna charge money, we need to at least do that. Next step is frequency.
Well, I think while we talk about this as a debate, I think there's some people here in the room who have been very big advocates for a different type of service to go to, like on demand and microtransit. And by now in 2025 have plenty examples of cities nationwide that you have fully switched to that and have actually reduced the per rider cost dramatically, almost to the point that they're profitable only from what people are paying. So I think it's sorry, this is another harsh thing I say sometimes. I think we need to find a way from going away. I'm trying to say this very careful. Casey could help me out, but probably won't. Because he always likes when I step into it. I think there may be some element where we should try to look at, especially if we're implementing fares, to get away from a very biased service that is created to only serve the underprivileged people, to actually also create a service that people want, that then can enable us to serve the people that actually really need it. I hope I said it the right way without being offensive. I didn't
No,
mean
I
to,
agree.
but
I mean, if I was the average day-to-day person and I owned a car and I saw that I could spend $60 a month and take a bus every 10, 15 minutes, that would make more sense. But I think the average person would probably rather get in their car right now than spend $60 a month on a bus ticket.
I'll give you a great example. I think this is true. I'll give you a great example. I live off Brooksville. 2-minute walkway to the bus stop.
Yeah.
I go from my house, because it's over from home, to downtown 5-6 times a day. I can't do it with a bus.
Yeah.
No.
The frequency isn't there. I would do it with a bus if there would be a rotator shuttle. I truly would. Because it makes it much easier. I don't have to drive my car. Sorry, I don't want to drive it too far down the road.
Yeah.
Those things.
Well, no, and it's the length of the trip for, it's commonly cited, right? For example, when we talk about OSU Cascades to COCC in a few minutes here, I punched that into Google Maps to see the travel distance and what it would recommend. How long does it take to go from COCC to OSU? You take Route 3 to Route 11, transfer to Hoffman Station. It recommended that I walk, because that'd be shorter.
It'd be easier.
Yeah.
Well, it's great that you're looking at those things.
It'd be easier to do that.
Well, and I recognize too that everything here comes down to funding. We're not Seattle or Vancouver, BC. But you know, at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, if you're gonna charge fares, then frequency has to be like every 10-15 minute runs. But then you have to get more buses, you have to pay the drivers more, and that's more money. So figuring out how to make this all work to where it is a proper transit system that people can say, oh, I don't need to drive my car today. That's less traffic. We could reduce traffic probably 40% in the entire region if we had buses running every 15 minutes. And lower our carbon emissions.
And I will mention that if we
Anyway,
do manage to
Carry
pull in 400,000 or something in that ballpark, that would enable us to buy 2 buses a year.
right.
Or drivers, hire more drivers, right?
Mhm.
So one benefit with this is that fare box is unrestricted funding. Like, what's it, 90% of our funding right now is grants,
Mhm.
and it's dedicated to specific functions.
Mhm.
So we're not able to spend that in any other way. So
Yeah.
if we want to expand service or amenities or features,
Mhm.
this is a way that'll help us get there.
One thing that with getting charging the fares and with implementing the passes with the photographs is, I think it is gonna make it safer. I think that the common conception of the buses is that they're not safe.
They don't wanna ride the bus.
What's that?
They don't wanna ride the bus.
Well, I think the common misconception is that
Yeah.
they're not safe, and I think that
Well, yeah.
this is going to be something that will shift that. I think it's shifting already,
Right.
but that's not the public perception of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's lots of studies nationally and internationally about people are willing to pay fares for quality service.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a deterrent, and at all income levels, folks are willing to pay for this service, but it's incumbent on us to deliver quality service.
Right.
Right.
And I think, I mean, last thing I have to, sorry, that's where I think sometimes that's where the problem is. If I, sorry, I know you didn't mean it like this, but when you say, well, $400,000 a year can make us buy 2 buses a year, well, that's where the problem is. The future for public transit is not in buses. It just isn't, and I'm sorry, somebody has to say it. The future of public transportation is not with buses. And so if the vision of creating fares is to buy more buses down the road, we are already going down the wrong path.
Well, I
Sorry.
keep advocating for a light rail between the airport and Bend, and everyone keeps saying, oh, it's too much money, but you look at Australia, you look at Europe, you look at all these other countries, and they're investing billions of dollars in trains.
All right, well, with that comment, I think we should move on to the next topic. We're gonna start talking about light rail. No offense, Trevor.
All right. Well, now we get
I'll bring it up in 20 more years.
an opportunity for input from the board. This is one of our prospective action items. So we have 2 recreation services. Transit trails is our summer service to the mountain, and we talked about this at the last meeting. We had some good public comment from another operator out there. So this one, we're looking at increasing to a flat $10 round trip. It's currently $5 one way, $9 round trip. Lots of folks just take that one way and then ride their bike back down. So that flat round trip rate would capture a little more and get us closer to better for that other operator.
How many of the people that we had, did they do the $5 one right down versus the $9?
I want to say it was 80-some%. It was pretty substantial.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does this, for lack of a better word, jive with Cog Wild and what their asks were?
This is on the lower end of their ask. They were looking for closer to 15.
How did they react to this?
I don't think we've had the conversation, so we're gonna take your feedback and then.
How much do they charge right now? We know?
15.
They charge
$15-17, I think.
How many bikes can we fit?
The bike rack we have currently is 20 bikes.
What happened to the ride the river
Yeah, I was wondering.
shuttle on there?
That one's a contract with the Ben Parks, so the fee is written in that contract, I believe, and I think we're having conversations later about that, so. That might still be on the table, I'm not sure.
Is there an idea for seasonal pass?
Well, no.
Would you have to use one of your drivers that would take away from the route drivers?
For Red River.
Yes.
Bob is actually looking at some concepts for restructuring how we do Ride the River. Currently, we have contract drivers that are operating that. We might have those run by CET staff.
I think it would be interesting to look at a seasonal pass. Also would be interesting to look at a scratch pass. Where you can say like, I wanna buy 10
Ticket.
round trips or 10 users or 20, and therefore you get a little bit of a discount. I was eager to say you should go higher than 10, but I also think we might want to be more competitive to private operators who don't want to be below the private operator, but.
Well, that was the conversation we had last time, Cogwell came in and talking about that, but they were severely undercutting them and just kind of wiping out their business model. Okay, so there's a balance with it. Well, I mean.
Cog gets $17 or $22.
Yeah, and they have
17.
plenty of people doing it, so you have plenty of room to raise your rates.
And part of what we're gonna be doing with this service is looking at better outreach and engagement so that it's not exclusively bike riders. Like I said, it's over 80% bike riders right now. So how can we fill, because the bus holds 38 people and we've got 20 bikes on the rack. How can we get more people on the bus? How can we work with hiking and all that? So we'll talk to like Feral Keepers Oregon and other groups at how we can get the word out about using this for other services too.
Are these fare rates for recreation also included in the passes? Do they use the pass for those?
These are separate from.
Those are separate.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I was gonna say in the app somewhere you could put an add-on feature where you can add those other services on, so then when they add it on, they can still use the pass somehow.
Yeah, it's still, you can still use the same card or the same app,
Okay.
but it's a different ticket, separate cost.
I think it would be interesting, this is going in, I like that idea actually, I also like the idea with the fare increases in the monthly passes, and I know we're gonna have an off-record conversation. As we are making the micromobility program permanent, we are looking at doing things a bit different too, so that might be interesting to potentially, as we're going out for RFP for a new vendor, to put something in. We want to partner with the transit service to include certain services. I mean, if the monthly pass, let's say it's $60, and like for $25 more, you can also use micromobility as much as you want. Maybe that is a way of doing it.
Yeah, and what Toby's talking about is we're gonna meet up and see if it's possible to get one app for all that integrates with other services. So you can get your bird bike through the same.
And I've seen those in other cities where, you know, there might be a more regional part in the city part, but they're all micro managed in the same, so you don't have to have like more than one app. It's all just in one system there, so.
And then Lava Butte, we partner with Discover Your Forest, which is the organization that manages lava lands down there. They run the gift shop and provide a lot of funds to maintain that area. They were asking, and we were proposing, we had a meeting and we both said the same thing. Let's put this up a little bit. We're getting such high ridership that, you know, one, we need to control that a little bit. But also the funding is kind of meager and we have more uses for
Do
that.
you share that revenue with them?
Yes,
How much?
it was like $1,200. It was not a lot.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just go back to Brian's comment a minute ago regarding the recreational transit and being cognizant in your recommendation of what Cogwell brought to us last month.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like we're not even at these rates considering their request from last month.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to make it $10 round trip, whether you use a round trip or not?
Yeah, that's what we were looking at with this, is just to be one fee, whether you use it on round trip or not. try to catch some of those folks that were just going one way. But, I mean, if there's a proposal for $12, you know, we'll look, or whatever the committee's interested in. Or if you just want us to think more on this, that can be the recommendation as well, so. You did mention on the agenda that this could be a potential vote if you're interested.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the action item here is RPTAC may vote to recommend fares to the CYC board. Would we like to do that today? Or would we like to add some comments for them to discuss?
Can I add one more comment? Will members of the committees get prorated fares, or is that not something you guys are considering? Like, say you or on the committee or something, and
I don't believe so.
Okay.
But we might want to have a conversation with like city
Yeah,
events.
just a
double.
Well, no, like city
it,
events,
you
for
know, a
example, has
benefit
this
to our
stipend
service for you or something.
people who serve on committees, so maybe
Yeah.
part of that stipend would also be the transit pass, for
Right.
example, right? So it's something that we
Just
can think.
wanted to throw that in there. So,
Eric, was there any motivation to get rid of the one-way fare for like administrative purposes, or is it more just? You get a $10 flat fee and just, you wanna ride, that's just what it costs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my question on that is, were you making money at the $5? I mean, it seems like to me, maybe you were, the $10, you were missing out on the travel back.
Yeah, this would get us closer to break even. You know, as currently designed, it's a one bus, one driver route. So operating costs is very conservatively like $40-some thousand a year. So if we keep on the trajectory where we improve ridership and charge this higher rate, it would get us closer to where we need to be. Because this was being operated under a pilot grant.
Right.
And we have one more season with that.
Right.
So we might be able to extend that to next year, but we do need to get this on a sustainable trajectory.
So is this gonna help you do that? I mean, is this what CET wants to do? This was our staff recommendation. This is what staff wants to do. Okay.
So this does break even at 40,000?
No. It gets us on a path there.
And how would that, so then the next year you'd have to raise the fees again? And that might get closer.
Potentially, but we're also looking at advertising. The bus advertising program's been kind of dormant. So some opportunities in that direction as well.
I don't know, until you see ridership decline, I would raise your fees higher.
Yeah.
You haven't, and it's not clear if these are tourists or local people who are riding these buses in the summer. Probably a combination of both, so it's a pretty nifty way to get up the hill without any.
We were getting some repeat users just looking at the folks who paid with the app. So there were some locals that seemed to use it. So that was kind
It's hard to
of,
look at this with no, I see no analysis, so I don't know
Yeah.
how to tell you whether these fees make any sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, kind of reading the room here, doesn't feel like, it seems like there's a lot of questions. And, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but I don't know if we want to do a vote on this today. Yeah.
Let me test that, Brian.
Okay.
Let me just
Yeah,
make a motion
okay,
that this group endorse a higher rate for the transit to trails fee at a minimum $10 flat fee, whether it's one way or two or both ways.
okay.
So the motion would be for this group to endorse a recommendation different from the staff recommendation that would make it at a minimum just $10 per ride, whether it's one way or both ways.
And I'd also say noting the Card Wild's
Representing
suggestion
Caldwell, yeah.
is
Thank you, Greg.
at the 15 to 22, I mean 17 to 22. And so that gives them leeway as to, okay, maybe we ought to go 15 or something like that,
Okay, yeah.
I second.
right? I mean,
I think, are you asking for a second?
Yeah.
I do it.
I had a question.
Okay.
Can I just buy a $6 all-day pass and then use that on the recreation bus?
No, I'm afraid the recreation ones are always gonna be a separate fee. And they're excluded from the fare capping, the maximum price. So these are always must purchase individually.
Yeah, because I just figured most people that are gonna get on that transit to trails are probably gonna take the bus to the hub.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a motion on the table. What's the second? So all in favor?
I'm not, I'm still, I don't feel we have enough information to make a decision.
Yeah, I
can
I
abstain.
opposed to it, I think
Yeah.
we need more detail.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes.
Two opposed.
All opposed.
I don't know if I can vote, so.
You're an alternate member.
Okay, so, what do we get for the yays? I didn't count the yays. One, two, three, four. Okay, and three nays. I'm a nay.
All right.
One nays.
You know, a lot of people at Redmond I talk to on a day-to-day don't even know we have a flex route. So I think until we get more people
So Bob,
riding frequently.
you're more experienced in that. Where does that leave us? We've got 5 yays and 4 nays. Is that?
I think we'd want a greater support by the group to endorse it as a group,
Yeah.
personally.
I think it's gonna be. I think it would be great to see it with projections.
Yeah.
With like ridership projections and then also what's the name of the private operator?
Cogwine.
Like with them to compare that and a potential impact. I think it just would be, like for some people that like to see spreadsheets, like me, that would be really easier to understand.
Okay, so I think next steps then for staff would be to prepare more materials for the COIC board. More details, comment from Nick. Thank you. So yeah,
It's true.
once it gets to the COIC board, we'll have the further details for them to consider, along with the fact that you guys held a vote and it was close, so there is support to consider.
Acknowledge that in the
Yeah.
discussion with the board.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great conversation. Well, we have a guest with us today, Andrew, is an advocate with, a student advocate with OSU Cascades. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for joining us today. You've got the floor.
Yeah, so as was mentioned, I'm a student advocate over on campus, but I also hold some other hats as well. I'm a commissioner on the Oregon Disabilities Commission, who's given me their blessing to speak today on behalf of the group. And then I'm also a member of Quebec City of Bend Accessibility Advisory. And they've not had a chance to review the proposal that I'm about to share with you now, but it is on our agenda for our next meeting. And I know that there are at least a couple of members currently that I know feel favorably about it, but obviously we've not had an official on the record vote. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is potentially revitalizing or reviving Route 12 or something similar to it, so that people notably can get between COCC and OSU Cascades. Because currently you have to take, I believe it's the 11 to the station and then 3 to the other campus, which takes a really long time and is not at all efficient with class schedules that exist on either campus or services offered. And the reason that this is an issue that I've taken up as an accessibility specific transit issue is because the group of students who are most severely impacted by this are students with disabilities, first and foremost, because most of us can't drive. And then also just students who don't have cars, which is fairly common, I think, among both campuses, just due to Bend's climate and also like general Bend parking situation. And so there's, I think especially among students, there's a pretty big need for this. I have a lot of OSU students who are wanting to use facilities like the gym and the other clubs and classes and labs that COCC offers. Likewise, there are some students who are at COCC who want to use OSU's facilities. And so we just want to make it easier for that to happen. And then also, promotes accessibility, gets more people using public transit. Depending on what the fee structure looks like, that could be a good way to offset whatever the costs would be to implement a route like this if this body goes that direction. And then of course we have endorsements from Oregon Disabilities Commission, pretty good handful of students and staff. And then it is excuse me, on the agenda for Quebec. So that's kind of my general overview, but I talk fast and I don't know how clear any of that was. So but I'm not thinking about it.
And in a follow-up email to the committee, Andrew sent a copy of the letter that was endorsed by the Oregon Disabilities Committee. We'll send that to you guys after the meeting.
And I also have the unsigned student letter because we're still collecting signatures. And we've got quite a few now, but they wanted a few more days to get more because people are pretty excited about it. So I can send over the amended student letter with signatures as well.
How long are you gonna be in town?
I'm in town for the foreseeable future. I'm a grad student in the counseling program at Cascades, and I'm planning on sticking around in Bend afterwards for the foreseeable future.
You're gonna get sucked in.
You'll get
I'm still here.
I love this kind of stuff.
This is get you. That's mean for you to go to. I think this is a great idea.
Okay.
I think, sorry, are we okay to comment on it? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I can see like Casey being very welcoming to that too. When I see like OSU parking in there, for him to actually support a program like that, almost like a parking ride. I also think it could be a great learning opportunity with like seasonal passes and monthly passes, and then move to more mobility as a service to model something where it's a really value added pass. If I hear you correctly, it's not about not paying a fare. Think of who should pay a fare for that. If parking is included, if bike share or bike mobility use is included, I think that would be a great opportunity to test something.
Yeah, and I can't speak for any of like the OSU adult people that make adult decisions. I mean, I'm an adult, but I feel like I'm a giant adult, but anyways, so I can't speak to any of that, but I'm sure that there could be some conversations between higher level faculty about whether or not to look at maybe potentially including that in student fees or including that as like an addition to parking fees. I don't know what that would look like because I'm not in that world, but I think there are options.
Yeah, I can see having a daughter that is at those schools as well. I think she would totally do that if it's convenient and gets her there.
So can we chat about when this was done before? Because I was here on this committee during that era before COVID.
Yes.
And the bus failed miserably. Nobody got on the bus.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't convenient.
Yep.
And then through Casey's steering, and the city of Bend and CET, there was a micro transit pilot, which was famously successful by comparison to the route. So I would be challenging you to consider not a bus and going back to micro transit as a way to get back into that test here. It is part of the future.
What was the micro transit?
It was
Right.
two different routes, one between the two campuses and then one sort of circling in downtown to the mill. And
It was just a van that.
yeah, and you nap and you went Bing, come pick me up, and they picked you up and Bing dropped me off.
I think there's
So I'm not dismissing your comment. I think we need to bring this back for the students, but I don't want to forget that the history showed that nobody took that damn bus. So why are they going to take it this time?
So again, I mean, just for some details, it was July 2018 when the fixed route transit service was ended because the ridership was just too low.
Okay.
And that cost is fixed every day because that bus is running from, in this case, 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. or 7:30 p.m. And so we did a pilot study. It was the fall of 2019.
Okay.
And going into winter, and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Right.
So I feel like we had good traction in terms of ridership. There are some details that, again, we could go into later and, Overall, Andrew, I think, speaking to your request, that was done with a wheelchair accessible van. It was actually CET's van that was operated by a private transit provider. So I mean, there's ways we can get this done that are pretty efficient.
Yep.
Eric knows CET's master plan includes microtransit as an option. So that's something that, again, as these guys consider that.
Yep, and there might be some allies on the new council too with that. What I was always wondering, and this might be the time for me to throw this out, because I'm a huge fan of microtransit, which is why I said what I said earlier. I think this is generally a good idea. I also think maybe there's something that can be innovated to make that happen, knowing that we have currently, I mean, we had more, but currently have 22 van pools. The goal is to have 30 van pools. Van pools are a great way to get people combined to work. And then they really suck for about 5 to 6 or 7 hours because this car stands there, is not being used. So what if there's actually a way of saying, okay, so we have 30 van pools. They are driving between whatever, 7 and 8 to take people to work, and they're driving between 5 and 6 to take them home. But between 8 and 5, they're not in use. Can they then be used for microtransit? I think that would be something that could open doors like this. There's also, I think Bellingham actually has also a downtown shuttle where they actually use a small 8-seater, used to be General Electric, little gems. That was probably a much more cost-effective solution to run something like that than a big box bus, but whatever, I think the idea is good. How we're doing it, I think, can be figured out.
And then I would engage the Council on Aging in a conversation as well, because they have two vehicles with wheelchair accessible vans that might be usable for this kind of a pilot as well, because they're not using them all the time by any means. Again, there's other folks in town, other accessibility organizations that might have vehicles. Again, it was a pilot back in 19, and if COVID hadn't happened, I think we would have been significantly farther ahead, but that kind of shut down. But even seniors were taking it. And especially the one that was going downtown into the mill. So I don't know. We need to support you. So I think it's a great idea. I just am concerned that if it's a bus, you're gonna run into the same issue again.
If microtransit, for example, had a higher rate because it was on demand.
It was on demand. So I finished my classes and I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Or it's somehow just going back and forth, it's small in a vehicle, it's not gonna be in the winter stuck.
But if it's like a publicly owned Uber, would there still be support for an extra $1 per ride?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah, quality of service warrants.
Right.
Eric, you know that I'm not going to try to drag it on, but the truth is that everywhere, most micromobility not micromobility, on-demand microtransit programs that have been established are hugely successful.
Denise, did you get any information of why that service failed before? Was it just, it was not?
It wasn't flexible, and I think if I were a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old, buses are not something I want to sit on. They don't come frequently enough. I don't even have a place to sit to wait for the bus.
They're not even gonna stand out there and wait for.
Right, so I know that I'm going now, and I'm gonna get taken back and forth. I don't have all that ridership data, but I don't know how often it went back and forth. I don't know. But the ridership was so low. It was so low on the bus that it was stopped. So, but when there was an alternative that seemed to fit lifestyles and schedules better, people jumped on it.
I mean, just to answer your question, Ryan, I think it was one student on are they 52 passenger buses? Or 40 passenger buses?
38, something like that.
38 sounds right, yeah. You're one passenger on a 38 passenger bus, you're kind of wondering, what am I doing? Right? So in that case, I think the people that wrote it really needed a ride. And what we found at OSU Cascades is one student in the dorms has a car and they end up packing 3 of their friends in there to get to that class at COCC. And that's more enjoyable than taking the bus that's picking them up right outside the dorm. I mean, convenient access for pickup, and we have a shelter and everything. But they tend to share rides when they can.
And there's of course, a few other challenges like we mentioned earlier with how winter, we don't go up the hill, right? the vans too. There were some other things like, off of Colorado, we used to have a social security office down there, and then that moved. And that took a lot of, trips, away from this area too. So there were a few other things outside of the university that impacted this. But, yeah, this route did have some challenges.
If I could, as I wrote the letters or was working on the letters for this and talking to students, I think that initially the idea was Route 12, just because as I started working on this project, that was the information that I had. As I've learned more and I've got more information, I think certainly like a ride microtransit van system would work, provided, there are accessible vans and the time is not, time between rides isn't overly challenging. And so I think that, yeah, something like that, I think certainly would work. The biggest priority for me is just making sure, is it accessible? Is it, reasonable time between transit? And is it something that students can afford? And I think that all of those things can, from what I'm understanding, be achieved with, with a microtransit option.
And just putting on the table too, that accessible doesn't just mean the vehicle, but also how you get the bus or vehicle, right? The app, if it's an on-demand service, that needs to be accessible as well.
Right. The last thing I added to the conversation is just that OSU Cascades, student fees in the past have gone towards transit passes. So whether that be a CET group pass, if fares are resumed, I think our students would likely support that. And it could also include a, subsidy on this fare or whatever that is. But I think you can expect students and the university to support transit financially.
And then just so I know, because I'm obviously only a guest here today, in terms of next steps, does this group have any suggestions or feedback on what I can be doing to kind of help move this proposal along if it's something people are interested in taking up?
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. How does this connect to the rest of the bus system? I don't see that it goes to the hub or anything like that on the map. I was just curious.
Yeah, this is one where we had pullouts, so we could have drivers take their breaks at the university. So they didn't need to return to Hawthorne Station. It's all a matter of being able to securely leave the bus to take your break. So the university's actually provided a space for that.
I think James was also saying, how do you connect to other routes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, transfers would happen at either university with Route 11 at OSU Cascades or Route 3 at COCC.
Oh, okay. All right.
And this would be the intermediary bus that goes back and forth.
So I would just suggest.
I would say to you, start getting your name out there a little bit more.
Sure.
With different organizations with disabilities. I could think of at least 2 right now that you should talk to.
Okay.
I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, I can send my email to Eric to include in the. Okay.
How does he get things going with and under the guise of microtransit? It sounds like we're all in agreement, seemingly in agreement that microtransit is more of the answer. Don't shake your head now.
No, I was looking at. I was looking at Casey because him and I have advocated that for like 2.5 years. So.
Everybody else in this room but you. How do we, it seems like we're all in favor of that and that this is a great, this is an important thing that is needed. How does he, is microtransit something that this?
So
suggests?
microtransit, as done previously, was contracted. So we have the dial ride style vans, the Ford Transits with our big logo on them.
Yeah.
And then we contract the drivers and the technology. And there's pretty much out of the box solutions.
Can we suggest funding that?
That's the.
Could we make this
Yeah.
Could we make this a full-time route?
I think next steps will be, we've heard the overwhelming support from this committee, so we'll have to carve out some staff time to see what's possible, talk to our finance team to see what we have capacity for, because right now we're dipping into the budget a bit to raise driver wages and do a few other initiatives. So elbowing in on the budget side of things, and then probably the next meeting, come back to you guys and tell you what the reality is and if we need to pursue grants or
So
work with
about
partners.
partnerships locally as
Yeah.
opposed to grants, like that's what happened last time. It was a set of people, set of organizations that contributed financially. Perhaps the city would be willing to step in a little bit too, who knows? So I think I'd broaden your proposal to include microtransit in the language. It could be a fixed route, it could be that, and I would be encouraging you to be part of the community conversations about getting partners involved. I don't know whether OSU has money. I don't know whether COCC has money. Two logical places since that's the
Right.
front and end.
Yeah,
But not necessarily your job to be financially raising money, but I think it's worth. And I don't know, so it's either you guys deciding you own this or you don't, or it's a consortium that owns it so that someone can do the math and figure out, well, what's it gonna take to run a pilot, say next fall.
What happened to the Red Bend money? Where did that go?
So the Red Bend money primarily came Visit Bend. I think St. Charles Foundation was a supporter.
OSU was, you were part of it, Marty.
What?
Didn't OSU put some money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's, partners to talk with again, particularly Visit Bend.
It's kind of my point is where it come from before, talk to those folks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
And the technology in the world has moved in those 5 years.
yeah,
Probably quite a bit farther than we saw 18, 19.
And as this is an expression of interest in mobility more broadly, there's also been interest in a medical district shuttle. So we're eyeing a potential mobility hub in St. Charles area, right? We currently have 3 routes that stop there and potentially a 4th if Route 8 comes online. But then there's all the little side roads going from Bend Surgery Center, Medical Center Drive to Mosaic across the street from 27th, the urology labs and the VA and Deschutes County Health. So the potential solution would be to have that mobility hub at St. Charles and then a mobility district where shuttles go from that mobility hub to wherever your clinic is. Same kind of model as what we're talking about here, so just mention it.
I know it's early thinking.
Mhm.
But if I had an appointment over at the BMC, I could just pick up that bus and then I could go over to my doctor appointment and then come back and catch the bus.
Yes.
I like.
I'm gonna have to head back on the bus, but I will join via Zoom for the rest of the meeting.
Thank
So,
Great. Thanks, Trevor.
you're welcome.
So as the staff member, I guess I'll say if we hear you and I'll take this as you don't have to vote, but I'll take this as a recommendation from the committee that there is overwhelming support and interest in reviving this as an option. We've got a couple trip generators in the universities, the medical area, so we're looking at what's possible and what it takes to get us there.
I think it would be fair to add, just the comments, especially from John too, that like the committee is interested in exploring it, but also exploring it as a micro transit or on-demand approach. I think that's really important. I think that's what the point was of the last one.
and finding partners as well, so not leaning 100% on CRC, put the bill or own it.
I was gonna say the same thing, the importance of Denise's comments around getting partners to help post the funding for that.
I think, yeah, I 100% agree. I just think coming up, okay, this is what we want to do, and then we go and find the money. So I think making it depending on the money is where we often run into limitation because we first go in like, oh, we don't have the money. Of course, we don't have the money, right? If I want to buy a house, I don't have the money too, but then I'm like, I want to buy a house. It's my first thought. Now I'm finding a way to make it.
For charging fares, we'll have money, so we'll get there. It's just a matter of timeline and prioritizing it.
I think on my end, speaking on behalf of the commission and the students, I cannot imagine that they would be unsupportive of expanding it to include micro transit, so I'm happy to make those amendments for you all, just so that it's there for the record. And then in terms of like next steps, I'm obviously not a member of this group, but like as an interested party, I'm very willing to, you know, do whatever I can do and get my hands dirty to make sure that this happens.
Yeah.
Good job.
Quick.
And suggestion for you, maybe just because the, you know, G on the map, the OSU Graduate Research Center, that's pretty close to a lot of senior housing.
Yeah.
Like that might be worth pulling them in for more ridership, like Touchmark or something.
Mhm.
Good idea.
Excellent. Well,
Thanks, Andrew.
yeah, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
And keep coming until it gets resolved.
Oh, I will, trust me.
Given, I mentioned we'll follow up with the committee with Andrew's letter. Are you okay if I send your individual email addresses to Andrew too? If you
Yeah,
guys
you
want
can
to.
send mine. I mean, it's just my school one.
Perfect,
Yeah,
okay.
you can send that out to folks if they want.
So if any committee members are interested, reach out to follow up.
That's great.
Okay.
Great, okay, Derek, oh, sorry.
The second bullet here quickly is Hal Show, who gave us the public comment earlier. He's a professor at COCC and works with their mobility team there. They are looking at realigning their class schedules at COCC to have consistent start times. Currently, it's a little wild. Different classes start at different times. But if every single class starts at the same time, you know, time blocks, then we can look at the possibility of aligning our schedule better with that. It might not work through the entirety of the day, but just taking a cursory look at it so far, I think we can maybe support this. So that's something that we'll be looking at, and we'll reach out to community partners as well on this. But that's part of making public transit actually work, is making it get there when you need to be there.
I have to head out a little early, but thank you so much for having me, and I'll look forward to keeping in touch with all of you and hopefully being back.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Freddie, you had a question?
Just a comment. I know you don't need to hear this, Eric, but I'm hugely supportive in that initiative, both on the COCC side and on our side. I was a COCC student and had to figure out the timing thing with the buses all the time, and it was a nightmare. So it's awesome to hear that might be being remedied.
Thank you.
Right. And then we've got the CET new logo development on deck next, and Derek's on the call, but I don't know, Derek, do you want to present this, or Eric, are you doing it?
I think Derek
I'll
will still
run
be
through
there.
it. So
There you go.
I'll just give you kind of a lay of the land on where we are on this. We are looking to revamp our logo. Currently, you see it at the bottom right. It's the atom that a lot of folks don't think kind of represents Bend, doesn't represent transit. A lot of people don't like the lowercase letters, so we decided to put forth an effort to revamp it, have it be a little more relevant in our geographic setting. And so we just went to a designer to get some quick sketches. One of the things that we did with staff was do an exercise like, what does everybody want in a new logo? Well, it needs to have some kind of like a mountain, a road, maybe some capital letters instead of lowercase. So I just provided some examples below. These aren't necessarily going to be the new logo, but these are like concepts and ideas for this group to weigh in on, to see like, what do you like? You know, what elements of each do you like? Do you want to see any different combinations of these? And then after this, you know, or like, what are the ones that are absolutely out that you don't like? You don't like the font, you don't like the shape of the mountains, whatever. And then we'll take those suggestions, and then we're gonna do an all staff transportation vote on them. Once they're refined, get input from like our bus drivers, our maintenance team, our call center staff, our admin staff, our physical staff, and then we're gonna narrow down for 3 choices for the board of directors to choose, and that'll be, I believe, in our May meeting. So this is kind of the start of the process. I just wanted to get you guys' initial feedback on like which ones you like and which ones you don't like. We don't need to vote on it, but just something that can give me, you know, enough information to like bring back to the designer to say, you know, they really like this style of lettering, but maybe this mountain or, you know, this road done in a different way or something like that. And then to the right is kind of a suggested color palette. It's a little different, a little brighter. Remember, we have gray buses, right? Any new bus we're going to get is gray, so they put kind of a gray background on that. And we don't have to decide now, like, you know, what needs to be turquoise blue. what needs to be orange, but that's kind of just to give you some ideas about how the coloring could work, and that would be a next step, is then getting some of the colors in there and figuring that out. But I didn't want to get too involved today, so we just did some kind of black and white lettering. So just really I want to hear from you guys on what options you absolutely don't like, and then which ones, if there were a few that you wanted to move forward, and then if there were a couple where you liked different aspects of those, like option 1 combined with option 6, or you like the box outline in option 6. So it's kind of a little fun exercise. I see Nick Sneed likes option 4 that has the CET that's connecting kind of with the road there through the mountains. Just overall, what do you guys think about these, and what do you like and don't like? And I'll take notes.
Good question. What's the why behind the logo change? I missed that.
What's
So
that?
this, when we got new buses last year, that came in the gray colorway.
I remember seeing
And
that
they were,
sketches for that.
yeah, they were just blank buses. We said, hey, we have an opportunity to revamp what goes on our buses. And the idea was to have a swoosh or a color splash or something like that. And then the CYC board said, we want to do something more.
Oh,
I think the
And then it
CET
turned-
that we currently have doesn't infer anything about transportation.
No.
no, it doesn't.
And it's also 27 different colors.
Yeah.
At least.
I like
27
4, 5, and 6 because it shows a road on there.
Yeah,
first up,
I kind of like that.
I like that.
I agree.
I'm with Greg, Derek. I like 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Me too.
And Derek, I'd be careful with the reproducibility with the 3 and 4, with the space in the letters.
Yeah.
You're gonna struggle with that one. I do not like 1 or 2. I don't feel that does much for you guys. I think
Yeah.
the other, 5 and 6 are stronger.
Yeah.
Just be careful from when you think about it in print. 3 and 4 probably will be tough.
Are there any concerns about the shape of the mountains?
Can we get it more broken toppy?
No.
Don't worry about
Because the
Actually.
too fine, kind of again.
Just that amount of detail, but sort of a little bit more like it would be.
Something that's actually local
Or the
versus.
3
Yeah,
filters.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like that.
But that amount of detail.
Pretty
Yeah.
iconic.
And I kind of like the box around it.
The
Yes, I
boxes
do,
in-
yeah.
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 You know,
I do too.
Yeah, that's true, because what is that?
I like 5 and 6 better because I read through, I don't like the openness of the letters. the way-
You like being more confined in a box.
Yeah.
I like number 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you gotta think, we'll probably have, there'll be a color inside of that, and we could make something like that work. I know it's kind of broken between the E and the T, and I did ask about that, and I never got a response, but I think they're just kind of throwing this out. I think that's not insurmountable, that once that's colored in, that could look pretty cool. And this is super helpful to know, like, options 1 or 2, you guys don't like those, move forward with maybe something that's maybe 4 but has the box, a combination of something like 4 and 6, and then maybe look at
Looking at like
reshaping.
option 4, the C kind of swooshes into meeting the road. Is that a thing that we should build into more, or just leave it alone?
Oh.
That's a stretch.
I
do like the softness of the C.
I like the.
Like LTD has the arrow,
I
right?
see your reading.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But.
I think the C in 4 and 5 is a bit harsh.
4 and 5. I think 4, so.
The colors look fine now, Derek, you just need to use them so we can see,
Yeah.
propose to use
Just
them.
color them in a little bit more.
Well, and one thing too is like mountains, we're not a police van or an SUV. We're 30-foot buses. So the mountains aren't going to stretch the length of our bus. Part of what we're doing with this design is we do not want anything on the windows. Those get destroyed, the vinyl wraps. So whatever comes next is going to be transferring this design into something that fits on a bus.
Well, it
So-
doesn't have to take up the holes.
Right, and that's exactly the point, is that this logo, if it's in a box or mountain swooshes, whatever, it's not gonna be that exact logo on the side of the bus most likely. It's probably gonna be like, you know, how TriMet has this, the red swoosh that goes down the side. Probably gonna look something like that, and then the logo over there. So just to provide context, this is gonna get some translation as it applies to shirts and the Fair Pass cards and things like that. So that's one thing with the snowflake logo that we currently have is we'll take elements of it and apply it in different ways, and it's more about the colors being a pop on the street because those colors aren't on any street surface. That's why we use that to be recognizable and stand out, not blend in with the trees, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, maybe you can put the mountain in the middle to be three-fingered Jack.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, is that helpful, Derek?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Yeah, I'm sorry I came by there. I'm just a little under the weather today. I don't want to get anybody else sick, so.
We appreciate
No,
that.
that's perfect. Yep, we'll refine these and get a good version that's kind of consistent with what you guys said and run these by our staff team, and then we'll revisit this at our next meeting.
Great, and that's a nice segue. So our next meeting is Wednesday, April 16th. We got our RPTAC next meeting and community organization. So there's a community retreat discussion and possible date.
Oh, actually, Derek, are you still with us?
Maybe.
I think Derek was leading the.
Yeah. Sorry.
The committee retreat. I think you were developing ideas on that.
Yeah, we thought about, so we want to do kind of a celebration of Hawthorne Station with the new amenities there. And then I know from COBAC, which is the City of Bend's Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I sit on that committee with Andrew, and with Commute Options, they're talking about doing like a walk, bike, roll, and bus event like in the first 2 weeks of May. So I didn't know if it was possible. I think we were going to maybe do like a quick bus ride and then a walk and roll downtown or kind of in this central Bend district and point out some like, you know, pedestrian infrastructure that isn't great, needs improved, things like that. So I didn't know if that's like too much to do. If you guys wanted to do a retreat separate from that or combo that with like doing a kind of a retreat meeting like during the day for a few hours, and then that event is like in the afternoon, and it could be kind of a most of the day kind of thing, or if you wanted to split it up. So that's really my question in the committee is like,
And the retreat was like we talked about last summer when new members came on was talking about how you organize the committee. What do you want to change about how this works? What do you want to ask from staff? You want us to give you presentations on finances or do a field trip to our bus maintenance yard or whatever, right? So this is an opportunity for you guys to shape the committee so it's not, you know, staff handing things to you, right?
Sounds good. I'm all for that.
Yep.
Let's do it, dude.
I'm more for finance, but whatever.
Yeah.
I can do all of it.
The finance.
20 minutes. Finance.
You're good without a trip to the bus barn? You want to see the numbers?
No, I do it all.
Well, people say the finance and the maintenance.
On the bus.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, put it
Yeah,
down.
spreadsheets and buses.
There you go.
Put it in the window.
well, I guess my thought was, did you guys want to try to align it with that Hawthorne Station event where we could do a little retreat? We're all here, and then, you know, we could invite the press to come down, and then we do like an event where folks are riding the bus right after that, or did you want to do the retreat separate from that?
We'll tie it together.
All in the same day.
All on the same day? Okay. So then the
That's
retreat
good.
would probably be like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at most, because that's going to be, I think, you know, then the event's like 2 hours. So that'd be like 4 to 5 hours total with a lunch in between, and we'd provide lunch for that. So if you guys all want to fit it in one day and maybe the retreats, something we could even bring like some of the mechanics over and bring some vehicles over here and showcase them so we don't have to do a separate trip over there. That would definitely save some time. Freddie, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm a little worried, like, can we actually get everything done we want to get done with the retreat in 1.5 to 2 hours? Would we be able to do a longer retreat if we did it not on the same day as the
Yeah, and
event?
that's kind of what I'm asking, like what, and I guess it depends on like what you guys want to get out of the retreat. Do you want to go off site somewhere? Because then that's going to take some time. Did you just want to like hunker down with like our, have a fiscal staff member there?
Yeah.
Have some of our
Yeah, like retreat we talked about before would be like 4 hours and then break and lunch in between or something.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't go too far from where we're at right now.
Okay.
Unless you provide a bus.
We do
That's
that.
gonna be difficult.
For Jordan.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of think like what we cover for 4 hours. That just seems like a long time for a retreat for a
We can cover dinner.
committee, but it's you guys as it's your suggestion. So
I mean,
You've been meeting before that?
We're talking about doing an open house for Hawthorne Station.
So I mean, before May, will we have a meeting? before?
April. Yeah.
April. So maybe that would be something to discuss in the April.
Yeah, so maybe-
Whether what we wanna do at the retreat and stuff.
Select some topics from the committee that you'd like to discuss, and then staff can prepare if it's presenting on the budget or bylaw review or something like that.
Well, my contention is 4 hours, and you think that's a long time, well, you could have a little bit of fun, it's some maintenance.
Our monthly staff meetings are 3 hours and they go by like that, so.
I know.
Yeah, Freddie?
I would support a longer, like 4 hour-ish time period. I think if we're using this meeting to try and set some ideas of like procedure or anything else about how this committee operates, 4 hours is pretty modest, actually.
Yeah.
let's do
Another
them
option
separate.
too is that we could, use this to set the tone and then set additional meetings in between your regularly scheduled meetings, if there's interest. We can take different topics and build out whatever works for you guys. And then I see Nick's commenting that he preferred 2 hours. If we did call it a 4 hour session, we could structure the important stuff up front and then optional stuff on the second half. So.
From my perspective, it all depends on what the goals are, what
Yeah.
we're trying to achieve.
What are the topics?
We're talking about duration, and we're
Yeah.
not even looking at what we're trying to.
I think that would probably be the best next step is for the committee members, let's, if everyone sends your suggested topics, what do you want out of something like this? And then we can help you build the agenda.
I think that's a good idea. I think
Yeah.
if it's a retreat, we probably wanna have it facilitated too.
Yeah.
So we can go through the efficient quick.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe the retreat could happen in the fall too, once we get a little more insight from the members about what they want, and that way we can kind of do our events in the spring, and then we have some fodder for a discussion in like late summer, early fall to do a retreat, unless you guys wanted to do it earlier.
Yeah, let's collect topics and then we'll figure it out at the April meeting. How about that?
That sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks.
All right.
We wanna discuss topics or table that,
Um,
or email it out, or?
I think this is for agenda build for next meeting. If anyone has any requests.
Got it. Okay. Excellent. Well, then the next thing we got on our agenda is a roundtable. And the quote here is, what transportation issues or issues are happening in your local areas? This is a roundtable for anybody who wants that.
You ever see like Bend City Council at the end of the meeting, they're always like, hey, I went to this neighborhood association meeting and it was great. And I don't know, is there anything you guys saw in the last 2 months that you want to comment on?
Is there a way we could get somebody from the security guards to come do a report
Yeah.
to our group?
What are you interested in specifically?
I just wanna know since I talk to them all the time,
Okay.
I just want them to know that they're around to help us all out.
Yeah.
But I also just want to know if, we could have just every other meeting, we could have somebody come in for, say, a half an hour and talk about. what
Well,
they-
and that was kind of my idea when I originally proposed the, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
rambling, but, when we proposed the retreats is we had a lot of new members. And you don't know how we do things, how we operate things. Why do we do the bus like this? And this is an opportunity to take it into bite-sized pieces and explain different aspects of what we do. So,
Could different community members come that
oh, heck yeah.
are having problems with the bus? Actually come talk to us about it, because I feel like a lot of these community members, they talk about it and they write it in, but they don't come and tell us.
That's part of what
What
we
they're actually-
tried doing with the last couple of meetings where we had Andrew here and then Cod Wild, like.
Yeah.
As we're starting to hear that more, we're telling folks like. We've got a committee that will hear you. And then. You guys can make recommendations to staff to help us prioritize what we do, because we're short staffed and we need the help and the guidance, so. No, it's hugely important hearing from the community, and that's what you guys are, is our eyes and ears out there.
Hey, Eric and Chair, real quick before we go, I do want to recognize Denise Labuda. This will be her last meeting. I know she probably said something when she got there, but do want to thank you, Denise, for your years of service on this committee, moving to Portland. So congratulations, good luck there, and we'll be look to filling your seat on the committee. But that's a hard seat to fill because you've done a great job. So just like quick round of applause for Denise and all of her hard work on the committee. We really appreciate it.
Hey Denise?
Yeah.
Is there gonna be somebody else from your guys' organization filling your spot?
I think you ought to make a phone call and ask Cassie.
I think I'm gonna go with them.
Yeah. I've been asking for.
That'll save you.
No, I retired from the council on aging about almost 3 years ago, so.
I was still on
Trying to represent seniors, so I will be pushing one more time. To get them to put someone here and
And Nick has a question.
be a voice.
Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, thanks, Derek. Good to see you all. Just a comment, wanted to raise some awareness that the Madras City Council and others are really starting to see the need for a transit center here in Madras. And so I'd like to bring this to the attention of the committee and staff so that we can start figuring out a way to work collaboratively to start to conceptualize that, initially design that, so we can start figuring out what funding we may need and how to get that funding.
Hey, Nick, I was actually talking about something similar with our operations manager. Would you be the person to connect with, just to start scoping?
Sure.
Awesome, we'll reach out.
At least a point of contact for the city.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Just want to give a quick update on, because I think we haven't talked about like bike share and micromobility in a while. But you guys do all know where the city's at. City council tasked staff to work on a permanent program for micromobility in Bend. So we're in the process right now. We have to do a code change because city code doesn't currently allow a permanent program outside a pilot program scope. We're working on that. We're working on new administrative policies. The goal is, this is a real stretch goal, but the goal is to start this season with a new permanent program around Memorial Day. For everybody who knows how the wheels work with code changes and everything, that's a real stretch. So it'll probably be a little bit later, but not too much. We are going out for RFP for a vendor, so it's gonna be an informal RFP because we don't pay them, they pay us to operate in the city. We will not, the city council was not yet ready for scooters in Bend. I'm saying unfortunately, but that's a personal comment. But they're open to other devices, so we are looking at different vendors that are doing more than just bicycles, like potentially sit-down scooters or different types of bicycles.
we'll see how that shakes out. But that's definitely happening and coming sometime early summer. Second, only an update real quick is that most of you know, we received the carbon reduction program grant. The program that we suggested has been adjusted a lot by ODOT over the last couple months, not necessarily out of nefarious intent, but really more out of from the point of view that we were not sure what's happening to funding. And so we want to know that what we can deliver, we can deliver. So we currently are focusing on building 2 mobility points. This is outside Troy Field, so we have to find a location on the east side, which will be off Roster House and Alstrup. There's a small city parcel that has 5 lonely parking places that nobody knows about. That is city property that we feel is very good, especially there's a lot of apartments.
House, where?
Right, very close to Third. We're gonna make that turn and make that long term.
right down that corner.
Yeah, right in the corner. There's a lot of housing being built, a lot of affordable housing, so we feel that's a.
Do you know if the sidewalk is gonna connect to Third from Broster House?
I do not know. But so we are putting one there, and then the second location will be at the 8th and Franklin roundabout next to the community garden. We feel that's a great location because there's a trail that's coming by, the bike path is coming by. Then High is right there and Larkspur's right there. We had hoped to maybe potentially get property closer to Juniper, not Larkspur, Juniper, but that's not possible. But there we own property, so we're doing it there.
That's pretty close.
It's pretty close, yeah, across the street. And so the goal is to build those 2. Once those are done and the funding is available, we will do the other programs that we have talked about before.
I told different department, the engineers that are working on the Franklin redevelopment. So they're doing what they did to Wilson to Franklin, adding bike lanes and multi-use path. As part of that, our south side of Franklin bus stop there is moving a block closer to your mobility points. So
Right, great. And then you probably, the CAT staff knows this, there are conversations about the Troy Field Mobility Hub pilot program. That's still moving forward. But I think it's fair to say that we're at the point where I think the city is taking that project over and can I say that? Yes, right? And so I don't have all the details yet, but the city is probably taking over the project and is funding it through the GeoBond funds. The goal is that we are getting on that as soon as we can to make that happen as soon as we can. So those are all things I think from my side that are happening. So. Great. Any other member report outs for the round table?
Does Alexis have anything?
No, I think it just is in regards to the fees coming up. I really like that there's an annual option. Just for us to be able to pay per year.
Bob's still looking at how things will be structured, but I think we want to have as many options on the
Even
table
if
as
it's
possible.
12 times 1 month,
Yeah.
I'm happy that like paperwork wise, that
Right.
it's 1 year and we can buy a year pass.
Yeah.
Casey, you got anything?
Nope, I think we talked about Andrew and all that stuff, so that's good.
Excellent. All right, well, with that, anything else on your end, Eric?
If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. I'm gonna end the stream now.
All right, well, with that, meeting adjourned.
Thanks, guys.